Most people think they quit in February because they're lazy. That's not it. They quit because February tells the truth. January lies to you. February exposes you. In January, everything feels possible. New year, new plan, new identity you haven't had to defend yet. You're running on novelty, on adrenaline, on the fantasy of who you might become. But February removes the illusion. No countdowns, no hype, no one asking about your goals anymore. Just cold mornings, empty gyms, and the quiet question you've been avoiding. Are you actually going to do this, or were you just excited to start? This is where most people disappear, not because they failed, but because reality finally showed up. You'll feel it soon if you haven't already. Progress slows, the scale stops moving, the lifts stall, the routine gets boring, and the dangerous thought creeps in. Maybe this isn't working. That thought kills more goals than lack of discipline ever could, because February doesn't break people physically. It breaks them psychologically. January says, you can be anything. February asks, so, where's the proof? And most people don't have any yet. So they panic, they change the plan, they blame the method, they start researching again instead of executing. New program, new diet, new app, new excuse. And they tell themselves it's strategic. It's not. It's avoidance. Because staying on the same path in February requires something most people don't have yet. Patience without validation. No likes, no comments, no compliments, just work and silence. This is the moment where the gap opens. On one side, people who need motivation to act. On the other, people who act regardless of how it feels. February selects for that difference. That's why most people quit here. Not loudly, not dramatically. They just stop. One missed session, then another, then I'll get back to it next week. And suddenly it's March, then April, then another year where nothing changed. Here's the part no one tells you. February isn't a wall, it's a filter. It filters out people who only liked the idea of change. Because if you can't train when it's boring, you won't train when it's hard. If you can't stay consistent when progress is invisible, you won't survive when progress costs you something. February asks a brutal question. Who are you when no one is watching and nothing is happening yet? Most people don't like the answer, so they quit before it defines them. But if you're still here right now, listening to this, there's a good chance you already feel the tension. You feel the drop, the drag, the urge to reset instead of continue. Good. That means you've arrived at the real starting line. Because discipline doesn't begin in January. It begins the moment motivation dies. And motivation always dies in February.
You need to understand this clearly. February is not a motivation problem. It's an identity problem. In January, you try on a new identity. In February, you're asked to pay for it. And payment feels uncomfortable. Training stops being exciting. It starts becoming expected. You're no longer proving something to the future. You're proving something to the present. That's where most people hesitate. Because now, the work counts. Miss a session now, and you feel it. Skip a rep now, and it echoes. This is where self-talk gets dangerous. You've done enough. You can ease off. You deserve a break. No, you deserve alignment. Alignment between who you said you'd be and what you're willing to do when it's inconvenient. February doesn't ask for intensity. It asks for consistency. Not heroic effort. Not burnout sessions. Just showing up. Again, and again, and again. And that's exactly why people quit. Because consistency is boring. There's no dopamine hit, no transformation montage, no dramatic breakthrough, just repetition. And repetition forces honesty. You can't pretend anymore. You either train or you don't. You either show up or you don't. There's no hype to hide behind. That's terrifying for people whose identity depends on intention instead of action. So they escape. They reframe quitting as being flexible. They call it listening to their body. They say, life got busy. But the truth is simpler. They weren't ready to be average long enough to become exceptional. February demands that sacrifice. January lets you dream about the outcome. February chains you to the process, and the process doesn't care how motivated you are. It only responds to reps, to days stacked on days, to decisions repeated even when they feel pointless. This is where real separation happens. Because if you stay now, you're no longer part of the crowd. You're part of the minority that doesn't need excitement to move. And once that switch flips, once you realize you don't need to feel like it, you become dangerous. Not loud, not flashy, just inevitable. Here's the irony. The people who quit in February think they're failing. But the people who stay, they don't feel successful either. They feel tired, doubtful, unsure. But they keep going anyway. That's the difference. Not confidence, not clarity. Commitment without certainty. February rewards that. Not immediately, not visibly, but quietly. Weeks later when the results start showing up. Months later when others are starting again. Years later when your identity is no longer fragile. So if you're wondering right now, is this the point where I fall off? Good. That means you're standing at the fork. Most people take the exit. They always have. But if you don't, if you treat February like the proving ground instead of the problem, you won't need motivation ever again. Because you'll know something most people never learn. You don't rise when it feels good. You rise when you refuse to quit while everything feels flat. That's the real training arc. And if you stay through February, you won't just survive the year. You'll own it. If this hit where it needed to, you already know what to do. Stay, train, stack the days. And if you're walking this path daily, make sure you're subscribed. This channel exists for the months that break people, not the ones that hype them. February is watching. Don't blink.